Well, Matt, we are not, as you've just pointed out, finishing the week with any clarity whatsoever. Stocks continue to be volatile. The dollar, as you said, continues to be under pressure. And the interest rate, crucially, that America is paying on its debt in the bond market continues to spike. It's an esoteric market, but everyone's watching it very closely because it denotes a dangerous lack of confidence in the American economy, and it makes it much harder for America to service its trillions of dollars worth of debt. And it was that pressure in the bond market that made Donald Trump put a pause on his tariff for 90 days. Will it now, everyone's asking him, make him pause on China? It certainly doesn't look as if either side is going to blink. The White House, of course, is continuing to insist that everything is on course. Donald Trump said today we're doing really well on our tariffs, but for the millions of ordinary Americans out there, and for those that we went to see in Virginia yesterday, Trump's tariff chaos is beginning to take its toll.
As far as the president, I think he's doing a good job. We need somebody that's going to fight for America, so that's why he's got my support, I guess.
Jason Bray's family has been running this 2,000-acre farm in Virginia for more than 100 years. Today, he's spraying wheat.
Right now, we are applying fertilizer to our winter wheat crop.
But his biggest crop is soybeans, and one of the biggest markets for American soybeans is China. So when Beijing slaps a tariff of 125% on American imports, the soybean market feels it particularly hard. You're a big soybean producer. Presumably you're worried.
There's a concern that it's going to have a short-term effect on price. In the long term, I think it's going to be better in the long run. If these tariffs will make the country better for my kids and my grandchildren, but I've got to feel some pain today, I'm okay with it.
He's okay with it because, like many farmers in rural communities, they voted for Donald Trump and believe it's their patriotic duty to stand by his policies.
I've got a whole list of issues in front of me. I got to plant a crop, I got to harvest a crop, I got to spray the crop for weeds. We've got to deal with dry weather. We deal with terrible rains. We deal with hurricanes. I got all that to deal with. Then they're going to put a tariff on top of that. The tariff's really not a concern to me. I haven't even raised the crop yet.
The markets don't feel that way.
Trade tensions escalating overnight.
Stocks were volatile again today. The dollar slumped to a 3-year low, and the US debt markets, a key gauge of confidence in America, was spiking. But the White House assured that everything was under control.
We cannot be dependent on countries like China if we want this country to be strong and wealthy. So the president wants to restore wealth to America by shoring up these jobs here at home, which will result in good paying jobs and higher wages for the American public. And so Americans should trust in that process.
But for some, that trust has already broken down. Wow, so we have a brand new boat here by the looks of things.
This is a brand new Saphir 24 Light. This boat is made in Muden, Holland.
Anton Weber runs a small company that maintains and sells boats, the majority of which he imports from overseas that are now subject to Trump's 10% tariff on imported goods.
Absolutely.
So who will pay that additional levy? Are you having to battle with who takes the tariff?
Yes, I wouldn't call it a battle, but we're having we all are in the same boat. Sorry for the cheeseball comment there, but we're all in the same boat as far as saying, well, we don't know, right? So we're having the conversation with our manufacturer, we're having the conversation with our customer, and we just don't know where it's going to land.
Trying to see if we can jump power off this.
Likewise, there's confusion about parts because boats, just like cars, are made up of dozens of components that come from abroad, which may or may not be tariffed separately. So without that clarity, he's had to cancel 5 orders already. And did the 90-day pause, the president's 90-day pause, help in any way?
I don't think that I would thank somebody for only punching me in the stomach when they said they were going to punch me in the face and the stomach.
That's how it feels.
That's how it feels.
Explain that.
I mean, it doesn't really change my calculus in that it doesn't give me any more certainty.
And a lack of certainty for small businesses inevitably means layoffs. Anton employs about 20 people, and he's having to let go of 6 already.
We're trying to figure out where we can reconfigure people and keep as many as we possibly can. And some of them, unfortunately, we'll find out later today.
That they're being let go of?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. To let people go because we have no clarity into the future is heartbreaking.
And he's just one business of which there are millions across America, all having to grapple with the same problem: uncertainty.
You go nuts worrying about it every day.
Just like the farmers.
The green on the screen means the price of soybeans has gone up.
We haven't got back to what it was before the tariff talk started, but the market is coming back.
But he admits even a tiny downward movement in the price will hurt his finances pretty hard.
So in theory, you're looking at quite a big loss if the
Correct.
market falls like you expect it to, if it
Right.
falls like it fell last time.
That's correct.
So what if President Trump doesn't come in and help the farmers?
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's all I can tell you, you know. Yesterday's history and tomorrow's a mystery.
Many say Donald Trump's trade strategy is a mystery, not just day to day, but hour to hour, with farmers, business owners, consumers and governments the world over waiting on his every next move.
Siobhan Kennedy in Virginia. Well, earlier I spoke to the Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, who served as chief economist at the World Bank and is now a professor at Columbia University. I began by asking him whether he agreed with hedge fund manager and Trump friend Bill Ackman, who suggested that Trump had been using the vintage art of the deal.
This is vintage chaos that we've seen a really trademark of Donald Trump.
Would you say that what Donald Trump has done, what he's decided to do for political and perhaps economic reasons, has hastened the ascendancy of China and the decline of America?
Yes, that's true. I don't think the damage necessarily in terms of this relative position is permanent, but it's very, very deep. The most damaging thing for the United States is what is not the trade war. It's the attack on our science, an attack on our universities, attack on the institutions that gave us really the comparative advantage in technology. It's where we are today. So his attack on those fundamental institutions probably is the most damaging thing. But equally damaging is the attack on the rule of law. And what Donald Trump is doing is shooting the U.S. in the foot. Now, the really interesting question, I think, is Europe. If Europe gets united and reassesses its trade relationships with China and the rest of the world, I think Europe can navigate its way through this very difficult period and emerge actually stronger.
And of course, one of the things that's really suffered is trust in the United States. And trust in the United States is one of the things that has always upheld the dollar, the US dollar, as the currency of reserve. I mean, you've effectively had a golden credit card for decades. Is there a danger that that golden credit card will now be demoted to silver or, heaven forfend, even bronze?
You're absolutely right. And let me say, emphasize something that many of us, again, have talked about for several decades, the importance of soft power. It was U.S. soft power that was really much more important than our hard power. People respected us. Now when people look at the U.S., they say, no, we don't want to be like that. Now, to come to the more narrow question of the dollar as a reserve currency, China already anticipated this problem. It used to hold $2 trillion or more dollars in its reserves. The latest numbers that I've heard reported are it's down to 700 billion. It's diversified, gold, euro, Japanese yen. So this march away from the dollar as a reserve currency is already way.
Is America becoming the most powerful banana republic the world has ever seen?
I think that's the worry. And it's a banana republic in so many ways. When we talk about banana republics, we often talk about leaders who don't have expertise, who govern on whims, with authoritarian figures. We've never had a banana republic with so much military power. And that is what is so scary.
Professor Stiglitz, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, I'm joined now by Pastor Mark Burns, one of Donald Trump's top spiritual advisors, and a man whose previous run for the House of Representatives was endorsed by the president. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Pastor Burns. I wonder if I could start off with a question about tariffs. Fantastic. Do you think it's morally right? Is it Christian to impose tariffs on some of the poorest countries in the world, like Lesotho or Cambodia or Laos?
Well, I think it's not really a question of morality because the nation, and President Trump is sworn to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. I can, as a moral man, can begin to tell you, so many things that happen, whether it be from America, or by other nations that are immoral. Some may think is immoral, depends on who you're talking to. But in regards to the tariffs, at the end of the day, America just has been taken advantage of for many, many years. Again, President Trump is a businessman, and that's one of the reasons why the American people elected him, so that we can bring jobs back to America. The whole ideal is that we would no longer allow other nations, small or great, take advantage of the United States of America, but even the playing field for American industrial, the American industrial complex, American manufacturers, and to encourage companies to build in America. If you want to sell to America, you should build in America, and that's what the president's doing.
Right, but Jesus would not have approved of sanctions against really poor countries, would he?
Well, Jesus wouldn't have to do sanctions. He would just turn, water into wine. He's God. He could just pull things out of thin air. But Jesus did say this: render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and render unto God what is God. And so therefore there's a law. Jesus supported taxing. Right. And so he didn't tell the apostles to don't give money to Caesar. He said, no, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God.
And is Caesar now American?
Caesar is dead. Jesus is alive.
Okay, right. Now, but let me ask you this, whether it's the tariffs or whether it's picking people off the streets and deporting them, in some cases unlawfully, what the world really wants to know is whether your country, America, under President Trump, has finally lost its moral compass.
No, I don't think so at all. Again, at the end of the day, the whole purpose of the tariffs is to give the American people. President Trump ran on this, and the American people voted him in. You got to remember that. He was voted in by the American people, and they supporting the America First agenda, so that so that America can become the powerhouse, the industrial powerhouse that we once was. That's how we became a great nation, was being an industrial powerhouse. But what we've done is we've allowed the trillions of dollars that Americans make to start spending in other countries, to spending in other country products. That's weakening the national security of America. So in the end, the British community got to support Britons. America has to support America. That's what this is all about. And these tariffs are designed to even the playing field. So that's what the president ran on, and that's what the American people voted him on.
You're sounding like a Christian nationalist right now. And that is something new in America, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm proud to be a Christian nationalist. The way that you want to explain it, I believe that Jesus is Messiah. I believe that this nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. I make no excuse for that whatsoever. The Ten Commandments govern part of our Constitution. Most of the founding fathers or the framers were seminarian graduates. And So it is no shame in our game whatsoever to say I am a proud Christian national. Now, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that despite whatever you're a Muslim, and I'm inside of a Muslim mosque right now. I just got finished meeting with some of Dearborn, Michigan's greatest Muslim leaders right now. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew, it doesn't matter if you're an atheist or Hindu or Buddhist. You have a right to practice your faith in the United States of America without being without being judged.
Just very briefly, Pastor, what people really want to know around the world is whether the twice divorced convict Donald Trump is actually a genuine Christian.
Well, that's an easy question to answer. For those who are questioning that, never read your Bible, because then you would never know that Noah was an alcoholic, but yet God used him to build the ark. You forgot that David was King David was a liar, a killer, a murderer, an adulteress, and yet he's the one that wrote the Psalms. You must forgot that Peter, who was a foul-mouthed Zionist who took the sword and cut the ear of the high priest, and yet denied Jesus. Let me finish. Denied Jesus.
Sorry, we haven't got time for the sermon. I'm so sorry.
And yet he was the one that Jesus said.
We haven't got time for the sermon. Thank you very much, Pastor Burns, for coming in.